Hey there, welcome to Synth Seeker. My name's Luke. Today we're going to talk about drones. I'm not by any means an expert on droning. I've got a few videos on the Lyra 8 sort of drone synthesizer. And I have a lot of fun doing it, and I've been jamming with my friends doing some droning over the last month or two. But I was just messing around in the box and just building some synth patches to use for droning. And I thought I would just share my approach to building drones, and something I wanted to share. That's basically the whole point of the channel, right? When I'm on this musical journey, when I find something that I'm having fun with, I'll make a little video to share it with you guys. So, all right, so let's get started. What's this? I'm working in Ableton. You can drone with anything, right? My friends use modular synths generally for droning. I'm out of modular now, and I pretty much just use hardware, keyboard style synths and desktop modules. Or I work in the box. And for this, it's just easier for me to capture it and demonstrate it. It's easier to do in the box. So I'm using Ableton here, but you can use whatever you want. I have a single instrument. And in Ableton, you can stack and layer instruments together. So I've got two instances of a very say very basic, but a wavetable synthesizer. And what I like to do when I demonstrate a patch is I deconstruct it. You just heard the patch in its sort of full form. I'm going to turn off the effects, start disassembling the patch, and just show you how I build it from the ground up. All right. So this patch is made up of two wavetable instances. So two just single oscillator. I'm only using one oscillator per instance. Wavetables, and we'll get down to what they are, but the way I do cosmic drones is everything's pretty well washed in a lot of reverb delay. So I'm going to start the drone running, and I'm just going to slowly take the pieces out, take the effects out, take the modulation out, until we're down to just bare waveforms, and then we'll put it back together. So we'll start from full, deconstruct it down to plain, and then put it back together. All right, let's get a drone running here. All right, so right sort of off the top, there are two layers to this. There's a wavetable that's playing this sort of lowest part of the drone, low frequencies. There's a wavetable playing high frequencies. All right, I'm gonna just highlight those really quick. So here's just the low frequency stuff. So it's mostly a drone. Occasionally it's modulated so that a filter opens and you get a sort of sweep. Wait for that to come around. There it is. All right. And then we've also got a high part going on. And it's all not very tonal. It's just purely texture. And I've got some basic controls to be able to affect the volume relative of each of them. So I can turn that one up, or I can bring it down. Keep the drone running underneath. Bring it down so it's just the low stuff. Or I can emphasize the high stuff a little bit more. All right. And then a few performance controls. I can control the amount of reverb being applied to each layer for sort of the blurring effect. So if I wanted to remove the reverb from the high part, let's isolate that. Here's a high part. Put the reverb on it, or too much reverb. Sort of smear it out. And the low part is the same thing. Remove the blur. All right. So those are basic performance controls, and I can control the amount of motion or how much modulation is taking effect. So if I bring the motion completely down, it still drones, but you're not getting any modulation of timbre. a little bit of the high end volume is still modulating slightly. I bring that back in. You can hear it starting to move more. All right, so let's take these apart. Let's just listen to the low end for a second. Let's go back to the end of our chain here. And we've got a hybrid reverb running. Let's turn that off. And you'll hear we've got a little bit of... I'm using a beat repeat. Let me isolate that for you. Basically every bar I've got it doing a little micro sample, and then it's detuning it and bringing it down and layering it back on top of the original signal. If I play a higher note, it's a little bit easier to hear it sort of detune it. Here it's sort of bending it out. That's the beat repeat. So if I let that set, right, that's just the isolated, the effect. If I leave it as part of the mix. So you can hear that. So the beat repeat's being used for like a glitchy detune layer effect. Turn that off, right? I use a room reverb just to push the instrument sort of back, forward and back on the soundstage. So there's a little bit of room ambience on here. Turn that off. Play this note and turn it off for you. So now it's pretty flat. If I turn that room on, it sort of pushes it back a few feet from my ear's perspective. And you could play with bringing that, making it more wet, the room reverb, to push it further back. And when you combine that with the larger reverb, it sort of moves it around the soundstage. We'll turn that off. We're not actually using echo or pan or any of these things. My default track template has basic effects in it. I am running it through a little compressor. Just when the filter opens, there's some peaks that I want to just sort of control. And then we get to the meat of the synth itself, right? So this is a single oscillator. We're using this, it's a wavetable synth using a quad saw wave, and you can see the filter modulating. There are two filters, one set to be a low pass filter, the other set to be a high pass filter. And as you can see from our mod matrix, I've basically got a triangle LFO and a sine LFO. They're both running at a very low rate, 0.1 hertz and 0.3 hertz basically. And what they're doing is they're modulating the wavetable's pulse width and its hard sync, as well as filter frequency for filters 1 and 2. All right. If I bring these down, if I bring the sort of global modulation down, you'll see this global amount come down, and these will have no effect. It stops. And this is basically what we're listening to. This wavetable moves from here to a song. All right. And my filter, it's our low pass, and about a 50% resonance, some drive on it, and it's just being modulated by the LFO to open and close, and then our high pass filter. Same thing, it's set quite low with a decent resonance to give it a bit of a bump. And it's static, it's not moving that much. So if I bring our modulation back up. Oh, excuse me. High pass filter is not static, it's moving as well, sweeping. So they're both being swept by the LFOs. All right. So basically what we're doing is, what makes a drone a good drone, at least in my opinion, is temporal motion, right? Motion over time. So you want to be sweeping the filter, you want to be playing with pulse width and sync to get that sort of constant motion. And then we just apply our effects to blur it. Give it some room ambience. Turn our beat repeat on to do a little detuning. And turn on our hybrid reverb to smear it out into cosmic space. So that's the low end. The high end is exactly the same sort of pattern. It's just using a different wavetable, a different sort of set of modulations. And we're also using a chorus, a little delay, a little distortion, and then again, room reverb, pan, and the hybrid reverb. So let's start turning these off. We turn off our hybrid reverb. All right, so now we've got it panning around our head here. Turn that off. Again, we're using a room reverb to give it some ambience. There it is, dry. We've got our little distortion unit here. This is the Roar distortion unit from Ableton. Turn that off. So basically that's just adding harmonics and sort of pushing the mids a little bit. We've got an echo happening here. It's a fairly long echo. It's a half note echo, a dotted half note actually. And that's our oscillator running. Right, so the echo is really doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. Right. There's some inbuilt reverb on the echo tails, but we've got a chorus being applied to our high-end sort of fizzing. Here we are with our wavetable. So our LFOs here are Sawtooth, that's doing the filter sweeps, and a sample and hold LFO also doing filter frequency variation. So if I bring our modulation all the way down, what we're listening to as far as the wavetable is concerned is just this saw harmonic wavetable. And our filters, again, this is actually 2 low passes, because I really only want the high frequencies here. Right, this is the wavetable. But I just keep it way up there. And so when it's modulating, right? So that gives us our sort of textural high-end, sort of, sandpapery kind of feel. We turn our chorus back on. We apply our echo. Apply our distortion. There's a bit of, it's also applying a little delay. Our room reverb. Our panning to get it moving around our head. And then our sort of cosmic reverb there to give it a wash. And then when we bring them together, and we could play our drone. that's it. So just a quick walkthrough, a quick deconstruction of an example patch for how I build a drone out. Generally, it's 2 layers, one layer doing a low part, one layer doing a high textural part. You can build them however you want, using whatever synths you want, right? And so there you have it. There is a deconstructed drone. Appreciate the time you spend with me, and as always, you have been watching Synth Seeker. Have a great weekend.